It was difficult for me because actually without documents you can't do anything. So and I also have dreams to pursue, so but then I can't do anything without documents. And I actually worked hard during my matric year. So in fact from grade 10 I did work hard and I was so passionate about education. So I actually wanted to be an engineer, electrical engineer. So during my matric year, I became one of the top three learners in matric. So I got a bursary. I think it was GCRA bursary. So it was a government bursary. But then I lost the bursary a year after, since I couldn't bring the documents. So right now, I actually started a small business. So I think it has been helping me here and there, so, to support my little brother and myself also. So I tried various things to do, but then
Hello, and thank you for joining us on the second episode of Unblock My ID, Unlock My Life, a podcast series developed by the Statelessness Unit of Lawyers for Human Rights. My name is Chipo Hansengule, and I will act as your narrator for the series. In the first episode, we introduce you to the practice of blocked IDs, its origins in apartheid South Africa, how the Department of Home Affairs goes about blocking IDs, and the significant issues with the process that leaves people in limbo as they struggle to unblock their IDs. If you missed out on that episode, you can find it on the Lawyers for Human Rights Spotify and YouTube channel. Something we touched on towards the end of that episode is how blocking an ID can set up a chain reaction in an individual's life. When Phineas's ID was blocked, he was unable to access his money from his bank account. He was unable to get an access card at work and was let go from his job. The loss of income led to the whole family needing to completely depend on his wife's income, and his children needing to move to a cheaper school. The stress severely affected his daughter's life and derailed her educational opportunities. When George's ID was blocked, he was unable to register his marriage, and his children were unable to amend their birth certificates. Once he was let go from his job and his source of income was gone, he had to sell off his cars to support his family. Blocking of IDs has a cascading effect on every other part of an individual's life and that of their families. If you are blocked in home affairs, you are blocked in almost every other part of the country. In this episode, we will dive even deeper into the repercussions of ID blocking on the individuals directly affected and the profound impact it has on their families. We will shed light on the emotional, social, and practical consequences of this practice, highlighting the real human stories behind the legal and bureaucratic aspects of ID blocking. David Mabunda and his son Andres, along with Anais Chuma, will share with us how their lives changed following the block on their IDs, and the multiple issues they now face as a direct consequence of the block. We are also going to be hearing from Bonisi Inyati, a researcher from the University of Cape Town's Children's Institute. He will bring the unique perspective of how children are made to suffer because of their parents' blocked IDs, and how the issue threatens to deny generations of South Africans access to South African citizenship. David Mabunda was born in 1973 in South Africa to a South African mother. He has two siblings who are also South African citizens with valid South African IDs. In 2012, he found out that there were issues with his ID when he tried to open a bank account, but the bank refused to assist him. Home Affairs confirmed that they blocked his ID when he tried and was unable to renew his passport. They informed him that his ID was blocked because of his frequent travels to Mozambique. David explained with documentary proof to Home Affairs that from 2003 to 2009, he was a truck driver for a South African company and transported goods between South Africa, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. He was interviewed in 2012, submitted all the necessary documents, and his fingerprints were taken. He was told it would take 5 years to resolve his case. Since then, he has contacted and attended multiple offices of Home Affairs multiple times, and every time they told him that his case was still under investigation. In 2019, he was re-interviewed. In 2020, he was interviewed again and submitted his documents again. In 2021, he was interviewed for a fourth time and submitted his documents for a fourth time. Despite these efforts, David's ID remains blocked, leaving him unemployed for the past 11 years and unable to open a bank account. Let's turn to David to understand the profound impact the block on his ID has had on his life.
I try to save money, but I'm struggling because when your ID is blocked, you cannot do anything. I try to wake up and work on my businesses, but it feels like I'm not doing anything. As long as I can put something for them to eat, that's okay.
David's challenges are not isolated, extending to his two children. Andries, born in 1998 in South Africa, and his younger son, born in 2010 in South Africa, are affected by the block on David's ID. The block has hindered the children's ability to register their births despite numerous efforts, as Home Affairs consistently declined to help, pointing out the issue with David's ID as a primary obstacle.
This issue affected my children a lot, especially at school. Every time I have to register them, I have to write affidavit, and I have to tell them and inform the school that my ID is blocked. Even now, without my ID, I do not feel like I'm a South African. With my younger one, I've been using her clinic card and writing affidavits when necessary, ever since her mother passed away. I am my children's only caregiver.
Let's hear from Andries about the impacts his father's blocked ID has had on his life.
I did my matric in 2017. So right now I live with my father and my little brother. So growing up, like it was difficult for me because actually without documents you can't do anything. So I also have dreams to pursue so that I can't do anything without documents. And I actually worked hard during my matric year. So in fact from grade 10 I did the accounting. I was so passionate about education. So I actually wanted to be an engineer, electrical engineer. So during my matric year, I became one of the top three learners in matric. So I got a bursary. I think it was GCRA bursary. So it was a government bursary. But then I lost the bursary a year since I couldn't bring the documents. So right now, I actually started a small business. So I think it has been helping me here and there to support the home, my little brother, and myself also. So I tried the various things to do, but then they failed. So that's my story.
David's children both face challenges stemming from the absence of a birth certificate. Section 28 1A of South Africa's Constitution guarantees every child the right to a name and nationality from birth. To implement this right, the Birth and Death Registration Act and its regulations were established, which enforces the registration of every child's birth regardless of their nationality or the nationality of their parents. Court judgments have been issued against Home Affairs practices that prevented birth registration, ensuring that both mothers and fathers have an equal right to register their children, or their children born to undocumented parents are still registered. Mbonisi will elaborate on the significance of a birth certificate and the constitutional mandate that every child in South Africa has their birth registered.
So, birth certificate is a fundal legal document that establishes one's person's identity and citizenship. So it is a gateway right to other rights that people have to have. For example, if they want to access social assistance, or if they want to access healthcare services or education, they need the birth certificate. And if you turn 18, you need your birth certificate to apply for your ID. Unfortunately, without a birth certificate, individuals face significant barriers in their lives, in their daily lives, and it may effectively lead to a situation where someone becomes stateless. So there are many challenges that people face without proper documentation, like a birth certificate. It might seem a simple document, a useless document, but it is very important for someone to use it to gain their rights. In terms of their laws and policies, everyone who's born in South Africa is entitled to apply for a birth certificate. But it depends on the circumstances of that child. So in terms of how the citizenship that child acquires citizenship is based on the laws that we have in the country. You can get citizenship by the virtue of your parents being a citizen. So it depends, it varies on the situation. But regardless, our constitution and the laws that are given effect by the constitution entitles everyone born in the country to have a birth certificate. For people who are non-citizens, they are entitled to a handwritten birth certificate. For citizens, they are entitled for a printed birth certificate. So yes, everyone should be able to get a birth certificate in practice. But in theory, in theory, it's possible, but in practice, there are certain challenges that people face to get that.
He and his brother are facing the repercussions of Home Affairs' actions, all coming from the block on their father's ID. The Births and Deaths Registration Act and the Citizenship Act clearly dictate that as children born to South African father, they have a rightful claim to South African citizenship. This entitlement includes the issuing of a birth certificate with a South African ID number, affirming their citizenship. However, due to the ongoing investigation into their father's citizenship, these children are unable to access the rights and benefits associated with being South African or even with simply being documented. They find themselves in a state of uncertainty, unable to obtain any form of a birth certificate as their father grapples with the challenges of unblocking his own ID. Their documentation is held hostage by Home Affairs, and the block on their father's ID extends its consequences to them. Consequently, they cannot register their births as South Africans or apply for South African IDs. Mbonisi will delve more into the intergenerational impact of blocked IDs.
Grandmother, for example, had a blocked IDs. It means like the mother's generation before are likely to struggle to access services because of one person that was affected. So you can see that it can also affect generations of people. I've also seen behavioral challenges that people encounter when their documents are not in order. I've seen families, that I've assisted where it started with the mother. The mother had schizophrenia because of the challenges that she had with the ID. The child also was also affected with similar behavioral challenges that they are facing. And some of the children, they're impacted also in their school because what's the point of going to school knowing that after finishing your matric, you cannot do anything in your life. You start because without an ID, you cannot access tertiary education. So you can see the impact that it has. It's long lasting and it's profound, and yeah, it's something that needs to be addressed in terms of finding solutions in terms of how people should navigate those challenges on their.
Andres and his brother struggle with several challenges, all stemming from the inability to register their births. The biggest concern, emphasized by both, is the obstacles they encounter in accessing education. For Andres' brother, these issues are beginning to surface as he attempts to enroll and attend high school. Andres himself has been contending with these difficulties since his grade 11 year and matric year, and continue to hamper his pursuit of higher education. South African legislation explicitly enshrines the right to basic education for every child residing in the country, regardless of their documentation status, even if they are undocumented. Nevertheless, children still encounter formidable barriers when attempting to exercise this fundamental right, especially children of parents with blocked IDs. Additionally, since higher education is not a guaranteed right for every person residing in South Africa, the road to accessing higher education is full of obstacles for these children, perpetuating the cycle of blocked opportunities. Mbonisi will share more about the specific challenges they might face in the educational journey.
The Constitution affirms child's right to basic education for all children. So, particularly Section 29 of the Constitution. The Schools Act also is clear in terms of access to education for all the children. We also have other instruments such as policies and circulars that have been issued that confirms the children's rights to education. We also have the Paramisa judgment that confirms the right to children's rights to education, regardless of their documentation status. But the challenges that are there is that not everyone is aware of the Constitution. Not everyone is aware of the judgments or policies. People often face struggles in schools or at registration level. For example, with the Gauteng Department of Education and the Western Cape Department of Education, they now do online applications for grade 1s and grade 8. If you do not have a birth certificate, you are not able to access that portal. Or it's not clear in terms of how you can navigate that system to get your child enrolled at school. So those are the examples that I've seen in theory, in practice happening. While this there is legislation that is legislated, but there are practical difficulties that are difficult to navigate. One of the things that I've seen while assisting people that contributes to a dropout. For example, you saw Anders's story. The difficulties that started when he was at grade 11. So that's where the challenges face most if they are able to get to grade 1. The challenges comes at grade 7 if they need to go to a different school, or at grade 11. That's why I've seen a lot of people or some of my clients who have dropped out. And the reason they usually give is that when I was at grade 11, they required a birth certificate for me. The principal said, if I do not have a certificate or an ID, I won't be able to write my matric. Some of that advice is given sort of as to encourage people to get the document, but in some cases it leads to people being discouraged to continue with their schooling.
Blocked ID extend beyond being able to access documentation or services. It imposes a significant burden on the affected families, including the youth, who often find themselves compelled to resolve the issue at the expense of their own aspirations. Andries, a diligent student with an impressive track record in matric and scholarship opportunities, is an example of this. His dream of becoming an engineer, however, has been temporarily put aside due to the absence of a birth certificate. Amid these challenges, Andries has taken on the responsibility of assisting his father in unblocking his ID. He encourages his father to persevere to their interactions with Home Affairs with the help of Lawyers for Human Rights. He has opened his own business, an internet cafe, to alleviate the financial burdens thrust upon the family due to their father's loss of income. Andries' dedication and resilience highlight the heavy burden placed on individuals and their families by the unjust actions of Home Affairs, a burden that is often too heavy to bear.
So far, I'm the one who found out about the lawyers' opinion rights. So online. So that's when I started advice I did. Let's try to start another process. Let's visit these people and then see if they can help us. Yeah. Okay.
I started a business on the side, and I hustle with it. It doesn't make a lot, but what I get, it helps me to support my family at home. I can see my dad is struggling, but if we're going to keep on crying on this issue, it's only going to hold us back.
Difficult for all of us, but we try.
These hardships extend beyond individuals and have a lasting impact on their families, communities, and the broader South African society. The burden of blocked IDs leaves families struggling to make ends meet, unable to contribute to their households, support their children's education, or engage meaningfully in their communities. Mbonisi will emphasize the profound financial hardships that families endure due to the ongoing issue of blocked IDs.
I'll give you examples. If parents have blocked IDs, it limits their opportunities to be active citizens and to contribute in the development of the country as well. So that means people are not able to gain employment. There are other opportunities that might get blocked for them. It means they're not able to provide for their children. So they cannot access social grants to begin with. There are a lot of opportunities that are closed for those children. If they're not able to provide for their children, they're not able to access social assistance. People are not able to provide for their children. From a developmental stage of the children, they need some sort of support when children that age from 0 to 5 is the most critical phase of a child's life, because they need nutritional meals where they can develop as well. So if a child gets stunting when they are young because of they're not able to get a nutritious meal, that can have a lifelong impact on the children. It means that child's development is already impacted. So you can see the impact that this can have.
Let's expand on the effects a blocked ID has on an individual and their families by looking at the case of Anais Chuma. Anais, born in Zimbabwe in 1974 to Zimbabwean parents, came to South Africa in the 1990s during apartheid. During apartheid, the government wasn't concerned with documenting Black Africans, but imposed harsh penalties for lacking proper documentation. In response to the looming threat of detention and deportation, Ananias, like many other Southern Africans, applied for South African IDs to protect himself. After 1994, the Democratic South African government recognized the significance of this group of migrants and their contribution to ending apartheid through their support in South Africa and from their home countries. Therefore, the government allowed these migrants to hand over their South African IDs and apply for an exemption. Ananias took the step to apply for a South African exemption, but found himself facing an issue. Although he had applied, he hadn't received his ID. When he told Home Affairs officials this, they advised him to write an affidavit and include it in his exemption application. Ananias followed this advice, applied, and successfully obtained his African permanent residency by exemption in 1996. For years, he encountered no issues with his ID until 2017, when he attempted to open a bank account but was unable to. Home Affairs informed him that his ID had been blocked due to the initial ID application he made during apartheid. He explained the reason behind the error, what Home Affairs officials advised him to do in 1996, and presented his exemption certificate. Ananias engaged in interviews with Home Affairs and submitted all the required documents. Despite numerous visits to Home Affairs offices, attempts to contact them through phone and email, and even direct communication with the Office of the Minister of Home Affairs, his ID remains blocked. This ongoing ID block has prevented him from securing employment or maintaining a stable source of income, resulting in financial strain. However, what hurts him the most is his inability to support his child's aspirations for higher education.
Finding a job really without ID, like it's selfless. Life without ID is selfless. Yeah. So if we are stateless, you're not a human being. And I remember since I'm not working, I'm not employed, I do have my daughter, and she's still young, she still has potential. And I remember one day she did ask me, saying, Daddy, I want to pursue my goals, my higher education to German overseas. I was so touched and I was so emotional when she said, Daddy, I wish your ID was active. So, and
Ananias encounters significant obstacles when trying to find alternative ways to support himself and his family because of his blocked ID. Ananias attempted to earn a living by getting a car for deliveries, but he hit a roadblock when he couldn't apply for a driver's license.
As I said, without ID in South Africa, you can't reach anything. Yeah, so you can't reach any services. It can be employment or any services. So it is difficult because I was thinking of helping myself by driving or using a license so that I can have something to take care of myself and with my family as well. But my license was detained, and yeah, so I can't even renew it because of this new issue.
Because of a pre-existing mental condition, Ananias qualifies for a SASSA disability grant, a recommendation provided by his doctors. However, the ID block prevented him from applying for this grant. Even with the documentation from his healthcare providers, SASSA declined to process his application, insisting that he first unblock his ID.
Yes, grant was suggested. That was after when I heard that my ID was blocked, because I started to be too much depressed. So as I said to the psychiatric, I'm in good position to see whether you qualify for grant or is. So they could see that I do qualify because of my health condition that was caused by this ID issue. So I went to them. Yes, since I do have the forms that I was referred to SASSA to apply for grant, I failed. So I was rejected. That was 2017. I went back again 2022. I was rejected. this year, 2023, I also rejected, so I'm not here for. So my daughter, anyway, she was going to get something out of that grant.
The problem with SASA grants also affects children. Even when all the child's documents are in order and they're eligible for a social grant, SASA still rejects the application because of the parent's blocked ID. This in turn has a significant impact on the child's life.
It can also lead to instability for these families as well, and the sense of insecurity that they have, because there is also some element that attached, some form of discrimination that is attached to people without documents that are associated with them.
Living with a blocked ID takes its toll on an individual's emotional, physical, and mental well-being. It can lead to considerable mental stress, resulting in a decline in mental health. In Anais' case, his pre-existing mental condition is exacerbated by his ongoing experience. Despite the ongoing support from his healthcare providers, the impact of the blocked ID on his mental health and overall treatment is undeniably detrimental.
I was really affected up to the extent that I was diagnosed by the disease which are associated with the depression. And as I'm talking to you now, I see my health is deteriorating. And I went to the psychologist. I have the proof with me now, since I'm talking to you now. And I remember I did try to commit suicide several times because of depression that was caused by this blockage. And even today, I'm still fighting against these suicidal thoughts that are attacking me because of this blockage.
Similar to David, Anais relies on the support of others to sustain himself and maintain his livelihood. Without the dedication of his healthcare providers, who prioritize his well-being, and a supportive community that comprehends his situation and advocates for his behalf, it will be extremely challenging to navigate this difficult journey.
Because you can see me in suit. Yeah, you can see me in suit. You can have one suit and keep washing one suit for many years. Yeah, I bought this suit while I was working because it's not like it's a recent one. So now I can't get anything by myself. I'm depending to the community, especially the religion that I'm in now. They're so supportive, and yes, I do survive because I'm depending on other people.
Due to the direct consequences of their blocked IDs, David has been unable to work for the past 11 years, open a bank account, provide for his family, and his sons have faced difficulties registering their births and pursuing higher education. Similarly, Anais has faced unemployment for the past 7 years, has been unable to open a bank account, supports his daughter in accessing higher education, apply for SASA grants, obtain a driver's license, and is dealing with severe mental distress. These challenges stem directly from Home Affairs' sudden ID blocks, prolonged delays, and a lack of communication, as we noted in the first episode. Mbonisi will delve into significant issues surrounding how Home Affairs handles ID blocks.
There are several delays that they do, that they have in resolving these cases. I heard from Mr. Daddy said it's been 6 years since he's been waiting. So there are a lot of delays that are there, and it takes several years before the issues are resolved. I think one of the starting points is that these IDs, they are blocked on suspicions. They are not blocked on the findings. So there is no investigation first before an ID is blocked. So that's the first issue that is there. So procedurally, that is unfair in terms of our law, in terms of PAJA. And also if you look at the Identification Act, there is no provision, there's no empowering provision that entitles Home Affairs to block the ID. There might be other mechanisms that are available for them, but there's no empowering provision that makes them to block the ID. So that's the first thing. The second issue that is there is that there is no transparency. So it's not clear in terms of how this process takes place, in terms of them investigating and what they do in their investigations. So you can see if this thing is ongoing for a couple of years, it affects people's right. And in terms of our law, if you take a decision that adversely affects someone's right, we have to give them reasons in terms of budget. We have to give them an opportunity for them to provide evidence in terms of unblocking maybe the ID. But as it happens, there's a lot of information that is requested. The burden is based on the clients in providing that information, but the process is unclear in terms of how it happened. And also, there is no proper communication that happens between Home Affairs and the people that are affected. And this lack of communications, it means some of the cases are neglected for years because there's no accountability for Home Affairs. We understand that there are fraudulent cases that definitely needs to be dealt with by Home Affairs, but you cannot use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. So what I'm saying is that before any blanket approach is done on putting people's markers, there needs to be investigation, proper investigation before someone's ID can be blocked. So there are challenges within their system that needs to be dealt with. They need to streamline their processes in terms of how they handle this case.
Advice to offer to Home Affairs in addressing these pressing issues and understanding the profound impact that Home Affairs has on individuals and families. Now let's hear their recommendations and guidance for a more effective and compassionate approach to resolving ID blockages.
I do not know what to say. I wish Home Affairs can change their system. I would be very happy if I can see my ID unblocked so that I can provide for my children. I hope Home Affairs changes their system and unblock our IDs. I hope Home Affairs can change, as Mr. Nyati said. I hope Home Affairs can improve their system, their staff, and the advices they give to people, and really act professional towards the public.
Who are experiencing the same issue as mine. I don't know what to say to them because the only thing that I can say is just for them to hold on and maybe someday some light will come. Yeah, so that's all.
Helping the civilians, but on this department, I never see any such thing like that. A campaign helping such people, because I had a staggering number of blocked ID, 2.5 million. So from Horses Mass, Mutuality himself on Tuesday. So, and I was quite disturbed. And most of them are South African. And those people are the one who put him on on the position. And after up on the position, it determined their identity. So, and I would like to encourage all South African people, because I also love them, because they're also human beings, get together with brothers to visit Home Affairs on toll-free number. They don't have to go to the centers or these things. there is a toll-free number. Maybe they can get it on this link and find out their status. And after that, finding their status, that's where they can approach the center, Home Affairs centers, in order for them to be heard, because really people are suffering from this department.
One thing that is important that Home Affairs should do, I think they should prioritize transparency, efficiency, and accountability. If these things are lacking from their side, then we're going nowhere. Because if they are not systems, they are not transparent in terms of how they're doing this problem will continue as well. So they need to also have a time frame in terms of how this process should be resolved. They're saying it takes at least 6 to 8 weeks to get resolved. But how do we explain having cases that are over a decade long? What happens during that investigation? Who's responsible for that investigation? So I think it's more about being compassionate to people who are affected than, yeah.
The impacts of ID blocking extends far beyond what we've explored here. It's a life-altering ordeal that touches every aspect of one's existence. Job opportunities abroad remain out of reach, and family reunions are restricted to meeting at the border. The ability to lay loved ones to rest and receive their death certificates become a privilege. The ripple effects persist, stretching to generations as descendants struggle with the repercussions. Being rendered stateless, unrecognized by your own country, robs you not only of your access to services, but of your rights. The violation of the right to human dignity in particular results in an erosion of self-worth, identity, and the inherent respect every individual deserves. Yet, life must go on, and individuals enduring this must continue to navigate the world. It's a stark reminder of how deeply connected one's identity is with their access to basic rights and their place in society. In the final episode of Unblock My ID, Unlock My Life, we will issue a call to action, calling for justice, reinforcing the respect for the rule of law, and demanding accountability from governmental bodies. We will discuss the efforts made to unblock IDs, the ongoing legal case by Lawyers for Human Rights against Home Affairs, and what must be done to help those whose IDs are blocked. Please stay tuned and keep an eye out for that episode. If you or someone you know has a blocked ID, or if you're interested in this topic, you can follow our Unblock My ID, Unlock My Life campaign on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to find out more information.